do that?
When you go to the page, it will be a live video. I can also copy the link and paste it here for you.
Yes, that would work.
Okay. Yeah, hold up.
We're live.
Awesome. We're live. The link is in the chat. Thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for joining today and taking your time on Saturday to listen in or be on the show. At the U-Turn, we do spotlight inspiring work of women, youth who are transforming their communities. We do conduct interview discussions, sometimes storytelling. We celebrate resilience and strength and the vision of those driving change at home and abroad. And at home, I mean for South Sudanese, because it's the community we come from. Abroad, we expand to everyone that is an immigrant. Today we have Tricia, who is a mental health professional. We're very excited to have her, and I don't want to take the shine away. I'll let Tricia introduce herself, and then we'll dive into the Q&A.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. So my name is Tricia Kay Williams. I'm a registered clinical counselor in British Columbia, Canada, and I own a Metamorphose Counselling and Consultation Limited. I also provide counseling for Black students at Simon Fraser University, and I host a YouTube channel that talks about transitions and mental wellness, reducing stigma surrounding mental health. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tricia. And today we're going to talk about mental health for newcomers to Canada. And as they are a different, undergoing different transitions in the society, as maybe a youth growing into adulthood, and also as people adapting to a new culture, a new environment. Before we get into the conversation, I just wanted to acknowledge that the land we are living, working on is in different areas, belong to Indigenous communities who have been good caretakers of this land long before any settlers came to this land. As immigrant, we are also part of the settlers, and we benefit from this, violence towards their people historically. And I think it's important to acknowledge as people have been forcefully displaced from our own Indigenous land, and to come into this land and also witness the same thing is happening could be very triggering. For anyone watching, I just want to mention that we will be talking about mental health, very triggering conversation. If you do need time to step away, go get something to drink, or completely turn off the video, it's completely fine. Please do take care of yourself first, and then you can be able to take care of others. So we'll get into the conversation. We know as newcomers to this country or anywhere else you've left your own home, it's very, there's a lot of culture shock. You get into financial distress, you get isolated. We grew up in a very cultural environment. How, Tricia, could you explain how we can take care of our mental well-being, especially when professional help is not accessible, or maybe some people are not aware of it? One of the biggest challenges is not having the concept, how to conceptualize mental health in our own language, and that's a big challenge. Even as we learn as the first generation to go through formal education, communicating with other generation could be very difficult. So please, Tricia.
Yes, no, I think what you're talking about is something that comes up a lot, with my clients and just in conversation, with others, how do you take care of yourself? And like you said, thinking about sort of those cultural pieces, like everybody is different, right? And so there isn't one blueprint, or a cheat sheet that I could give, for everybody in a sense. But there are definitely different things that you can think about when you're thinking about taking care of yourself. And the first thing I would say is checking in with, who you are as a person. Like, do you know what you need? And sometimes some people don't. Some people don't know what they need, and I think that that is the first step. If you don't know yourself and you don't know what you need, then it's going to be difficult to take care of you, right? And so one of the things that you can try is to start to be curious about you, being curious about what are the things that are going to be helpful to you. What are the things that are going to help you, relax when you're feeling agitated? What are the things that are going to help you to calm, like when you're upset and angry, right? What are the things that are going to get you in an excited mood, or that will make you laugh? Like, so what are things that are going to evoke emotions that are going to be helpful to you, right? And so I think a lot of times, because people don't know themselves, they, try like things that they see on the internet and they're like, oh my God, this isn't working for me, right? And so I think that's the first step, do you know who you are? And again, do you know where you come from? And I think this is all a part of identity, right? And so in North America, there's a lot of, I think, white cultural things that are passed on to us. You come as immigrants, newcomers to this new place, and people are like, oh, it's a busy time, everybody's working, especially working a lot. Some people have multiple jobs, 2, 3 jobs just to be able to pay what they need to pay. And you get into sort of this new lifestyle because you have to survive. And a lot of times people forget, where they come from, what is important to them, the things that were important. And sometimes it's, we can't access some of the things that we used to do, back home. And I fell into that myself when first came here with my family. And then just sort of, again, pausing to give yourself opportunity to remember, right? Remember where you're coming from. Remember what those things were that helped you. And then maybe figure out, can I access that here? And if not, how can I create something similar or something that will be helpful? I know I'm speaking like theory wise now, but so first, identity, who am I? Be curious about, what will help me. And then remind yourself of where you're coming from, right? And so what are some cultural pieces that I'm missing, maybe I've forgotten about, that I'm not practicing, that would be helpful, right? And then who are the people that are going to be helpful to me, right? And I think a lot of times when we're going through emotional distress or we're going through mental wellness, I truly believe, and this happens to me and a lot of people that I talk to that look like us, right? We isolate when things are happening for some weird reason. We don't want to tell other people that we're struggling, or something's going on. And so for some weird reason, we don't talk to other people when things are happening in our lives. And I truly think that that's one of the things that we miss, right? Who are your friends? Who are the people who are going to be supportive to you? Who's that person who's going to give you that cup of sugar when you need the cup of sugar? Okay. Right. And so it's important. Who's your village? Right. And those are the 3 things I would say to start off, being able to identify how to take care of yourself. And then the details will come. Right. And so, for example, starting off with who you are as a person. For me, like, I'm a person who, I do like my quiet space. It's not that I'm isolating necessarily. I just like to be away from others. For some reason, when I'm in a crowd of people, I feel like it's a lot more work. I get more anxious, needing to do that. And so I have to remind myself that, Tricia, you are an introvert. You need to be by yourself sometimes to recharge, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? So that's an example there. And then, where are you from? I'm Jamaican. My family, we immigrated here. And every once in a while, I need to remind myself that it's totally okay to want to be in a warm place. It's totally okay for there to be people around you that are shouting, speaking patois, to, just have that community vibes. And also remind myself that I come from a faith-based, place where my family were Christian. And so needing to be in the house of God from time to time is totally fine too, with no explanation as to why that is. Just being in the presence of others, that believe what I believe is important to me, right? And then the who, right? Reminding myself of my friends, like who are those people that come around ever so often? Do I need to call my mom? Do I need to talk to my sister-in-law? Do I need to send a message to that friend? Like, whose birthday is it this month? Like, should I send a message to say happy birthday? Like, keeping in contact with these people, and then reminding myself, are these people checking in on me too? Like, who are they, right? And so I think those are the three things I would start off with first.
Thank you so much. I'm just, while listening to you, you're hitting a lot of the things I have felt in the past and I've been reflecting on a lot lately. And that's why I think when I met you at the Black Summit, Leadership Summit in BC, I was first, I'm like, I've never found someone in mental health that looked like me first. Is working with people like me, and I was so moved and said, "We gotta come talk to Tricia." I immediately wrote a note. I called her right away. I'm like, "I found someone. We gotta have to talk to her." So I think I learned a little bit about how you decided to start your own practice and focus on supporting the community. And for the community, I'm saying Black people in Canada. And like for immigrant like us, like one of the culture shock I think is the individualistic society we come into, and for the first time you have to be alone with yourself and your feelings. I think that could be very unsettling, and having to deal with that and having to consciously think about, okay, who should I go to for help, or what exactly am I feeling right now, is not the first thought that comes to mind. And I just want you to, speak a little bit more about your decision to work with the community, how that came to be. Take us back to the pandemic, and I hope this is going to be a great story for everyone to learn about.
So I started my private practice in 2018, and at the time it was part-time. You don't know how these businesses are going to go. So I had a part-time job at the time. I was working, in a not-for-profit agency. And I really liked that job as well. It had to do with working with co-parenting families that were separating and divorcing, and working with the families. And I really liked it. And then I said, I was finishing school. I also wanted to have something of my own. So I decided, let's launch it. So let's do all the paperwork, all the backstory things, all the business things, just to set it up to ensure that it's there. And then I was slowly, going through, I think, the ending of 2018 into 2019, just doing that. And I saw one client here or there, right? And then sort of in the middle of 2019, there was something that came to me that said, you know what, there are people within our community that can't afford to come to counseling, right? And it's really a huge challenge. And so I decided, maybe I need to find a way to share mental health tips with our community. Yeah, and I decided, okay, let's do the YouTube channel. So I started recording videos for the YouTube channel towards the end of 2019, while I was seeing one or two clients here or there. And then in 2020, we were again getting ready to put up the videos for the YouTube channel. And we started hearing the news of the pandemic coming along. And at first, nobody knew what was going to happen. And so we're still gearing up. And also 2020 was sort of the year where I felt like it would be a good time to sort of launch, the business and share it widely with others, sort of the marketing piece along with the YouTube channel. And, I think it was around March that we heard, no, this is a full-on pandemic. People need to stay inside and isolate. And it was a tough time, for people. I think at first people just thought, oh, it was just going to be a few months, and then we would get back to life as, normal. And I don't know, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, it's a struggle. People lost their jobs. People, some people lost family members, multiple family members in one, household, right? I had a client who lost 5 people in one household. It was really tough. And so there was a lot of grief around the pandemic. And so it was during the pandemic that I think, again, that focus on community became a big thing. And lots of different organizations started to reach out. Again, I wasn't fully out there in the world, but, people are looking for, the right source, the people who they would want, what they think they could trust. And like you said, I'm one of the few Black female, counselors in the area. And so I started getting a lot of emails. Would you come to this? Would you do this podcast? Would you come and talk at this place? Would you, I would say at first I was very overwhelmed because, again, not fully set up, not fully out there. And then I prayed. I was just like, Lord, I think you are putting these opportunities in my lap, for me to do this. And that's really how my business was launched during a pandemic. Even though it existed from 2018, people didn't really know about it until 2020 during the pandemic, and, helped as many people as I could, got connected to as many organizations as I could, just to spread the word about mental health and mental wellness, and also, to provide the much needed counseling that people needed. And at the time, like you said, people didn't have resources. So it was grassroots organizations providing free counseling. It's like it was the Vancouver Black Therapy and Advocacy Foundation providing free counseling at the time. So I connected with them. Then we had, I think the Isamba Center also was doing a lot of reach outs and, sharing free food and get-togethers for people to be able to pick things up. And it was just a community effort, trying to, engage the community, ensure people were okay, right? And there are lots of different organizations I'm not naming, but, so many of them. I was also offering, it was free to the students at SFU at the time, but I was contracted by SFU to provide that service during that time as well. And so got the opportunity to reach out to others. The reason why I wanted to be a counselor, it's a long-winded answer, but my focus right now, I opened the business and I wanted to focus specifically on, like, metamorphose. The word is, it's sort of talking about the process of change, right? And so about the idea of the butterfly, right? And so it's the butterfly metaphor, in that the butterfly goes from an egg, right? It goes into a caterpillar, then goes into the cocoon, and then into the butterfly. And in all of these different processes, we're changing. The butterfly's changing and growing, and at each level has to, go through some process to get to the next level, right? And it's uncertain as to what is going to happen, right, at each stage. And I liked that because I really liked the metaphor, because I wanted to work with people who are going through change, like actively going through change. And the truth is, in life, that's one constant thing. We're all changing at some rate, at some level of our lives. And I thought this would be a great concept because, it would help people to realize, at every stage of your life, something could happen and you might need help with it, right? And so from birth till we expire, right, we're going through challenges. And it was, again, normalizing that idea that I can go and talk to somebody about these changes that I'm going through. And so that was the reason. Plus, I went through challenges and changes in my own life that sort of spurred that on. And most of the time when you talk to counselors, you'll realize that the reason for them doing something is because they've experienced it themselves. And so I've experienced sexual trauma. I've experienced, again, being an immigrant and moving from Jamaica with my family to Canada. That in and of itself is hard. And so trauma plus being an immigrant, I going through my own teenage years, making my own mistakes, right? And also going through the challenge of, going through school in a new place is another transition to work stress. And then you talk about racial discrimination. So all of those pieces, are huge pieces out to the story of, the business, the mental health clinic, and wanting to help specifically people who are navigating through those challenges. So life, career, and relational transitions.
That's brilliant. I studied marketing and I was just like, wow, you really put a lot of thought into it and it captures the work you do. I like how your business came from a place of you've experienced these things and you know how it feels to be a young person going through these transitions. And you come back to help people going through those transitions. I think all of us can relate to going through a transition at one point or the other. And if you're just joining us, someone who's listening today, we're interviewing Tricia Kay Williams, who is the CEO of Metamorphose Counselling Practice. She's an expert who is focused on helping people going through transitions, and brilliant one at that. So please share the video. Leave your questions in the comments. We'll come to those questions in a bit. For now, I want to let my colleagues have some time to ask questions. Rhoda or Dorcas, please go ahead.
I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Tricia. Just listening to you, everything you said, I relate. I've been that person that, like you mentioned, all of us have been through multiple transition, multiple displacement, coming to new countries, studying school, all the way. Like I've been to more than 3 different countries to do education, and those transitions usually have impact on our core identity, as you said. And when we start to question who we are and where we're coming from and where we're going, in most cases, it's really threatened our sense of being, and our mental health is affected. And when you mentioned that, sometimes we try to cope because we don't know what is happening. We don't know, what is going on. We want to go to social media to find solution, and those social media usually exacerbate these situations. I've experienced it myself. I've seen a lot of my friends that come live to come and try to talk others just to heal, but it made things worse. So my question to you, in regard to those, I just want to talk about how culture, impact this, and for us who have been to multiple cultures, it's become very strange. But in my culture, in particular, mental health is something that is discussed openly. No one talks about it. As Alakir mentioned, it doesn't have a name in, in our language. When someone is mentally ill, people speculate that they might have been bewitched. So that's what. Since growing up, I know mental ill people are people that are bewitched, and so how can someone recognize when they are struggling with their mind, and what small steps can they take to feel better? You caution against social media, so I'm really looking for better solution or coping mechanism that we can recognize and take actions.
Yeah, so first I want to state the difference between mental wellness and mental illness. So definitely a difference there. And so the first is mental health or mental wellness. All of us need to take care of that. We can all be impacted by mental, health challenges. And so again, we all have emotions, so we all can become anxious. We can all become angry. We all experience traumatic events from time to time. And so experience, witness, right? And so our mental health or mental wellness can be impacted. All of us. It's a thing that could happen to anybody, right? So just wanting to put that out there. We can all become sad, right? Experience symptoms of depression. And so, wanting to again normalize it as something we all can experience, right? And so let's talk a bit about mental health and wellness first. And so by normalizing it, and if we are able to accept that that is something that everybody experiences, then we can then think about, okay, first question we talked about, if we're able to know who we are, if we're able to remember where we're coming from and the people around us that are supportive, then we'll be able to sort of get the answers to how we can, I don't want to say heal ourselves, but get to figure out the things that we need to do if our mental wellness is not going well. But there is a little acronym that comes from DBT, which is a dialectic behavioral therapy, and it's the PLEASED acronym. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but I'll share what the PLEASED acronym is, and it's a way to check in with yourself, just to give yourself the opportunity to figure out, okay, how am I doing? Right. And so the PLEASE acronym stands for treating your physical illness, right? Because again, you're thinking about the whole person, because your physical wellness it does impact your mental wellness. And so if you're sick, for example, if you have a cold or the flu, you definitely start to have brain fog. You can't remember things, sleeping a lot, right? And so can't work. And so these are why a lot of jobs give you sick days so you can take time off, because you're not going to be useful, at your job if you're sick. Plus you may make other people sick, right? And so making sure you're treating physical illnesses, and ways to know if you have a physical illness, have regular check-ins with a doctor. Now, I know that's also one of the big issues here in BC, or in a lot of places in the world, access to healthcare. And so if you are privileged to have access to healthcare, I would say try to check in at least once a year, multiple times if you have a more severe physical illness. And then that can help you to be able to take care of the physical illness piece, right? Other things that are important are making sure you're eating balanced meals and regular meals. Now, balanced meals, it means different things in different countries or different places, but it's really ensuring that you're getting all the things that your body needs. And that's sort of why the foundation of knowing who you are and what's important to you and healthy for you is going to help you with everything else. And so eating balanced meals that are, again, good for you, is going to help you. Regular meals, meaning you don't want to be restricting, or you don't want to be eating more than you're supposed to, again. And so making sure that it's regular enough. Some people are great with just 2 big meals and a snack. Some people need 3 big meals, right? Others, will be snacking throughout the whole day, but they're snacking on good things, right? And so needing to know what is going to be good for you is helpful. Avoid mood-altering substances, right? And so avoiding mood-altering substances could be alcohol, right? And when they say avoid, it doesn't mean that you can't have it. It just means it should be seldom. It shouldn't be something you're doing all the time, because mood-altering substances can impact your brain, the brain neurons, connections, and make it difficult for you, again, to think, to do what you need to do. Over time, you can get addicted to mood-altering substances. And so it's important to, again, not use them when when it's not celebratory, and things like that, right? Balanced sleep is important. So sleep is so important to the mental health. When we're sleeping, you can think about it as, someone explained it to me, like when you go to work and you leave work, then you have sort of like the janitors or the cleaners that come in to ensure the space is clean, so that the next day when you come in, you're able to, work in a clean environment. And that's sort of what happens when you sleep. Your body goes to sleep, it shuts down, as much as it can. And then you basically have the cleaners who are going in, cleaning things up, making sure, that when you wake up, you pee, you poo, you get rid of toxins. So it's preparing all of that while you're sleeping to be able to do that. It also, again, in your brain, it's organizing all the things that you were thinking about or that came through your mind during the day. So all of those the sensory things that came in, your brain's processing that while you're sleeping. And so if you think about it, if you don't sleep, then the body doesn't get a chance to reset, recharge, and, to categorize and put things into place in your mind. And so it can, again, snowball. And the worst case scenario of not sleeping, sometimes people will go 2-3 days without sleeping, 4 days, and then they can go into what we call psychosis, sort of confusion, not knowing where they are, what time it is, things like they get disoriented. And so with rest, again, regular meals, and their physical well-being and sleep, then a person can get back to being better, right? And so again, these are all things that can happen to anybody, okay? So please get your sleep. The last thing is exercise. And I like to put movement here because we know there are some people who may not have the physical ability to do all the exercises, go to the gym, things like that. But if you're able to move around, move your body in ways that can help it to not be stagnant all the time, then that can help with your body being able to physically do the things it needs to do. Okay. And all of these are important for, again, self-care and promoting emotional well-being and stability. Now, the D at the end, I like to put a D at the end. It's sort of like the mental wellness piece in, are you able to, or have you done all of these things? It's sort of like like the diary piece where, if you were to journal and keep track, each month or, every 3 months or something like that. Have I done these things? How am I doing with these things? Like that, check in for yourself. And, that list of going through can keep you on track and could help you, when you're going through a really stressful time. These are the basics, foundational things that are going to help your body to be able to respond to whatever the challenge is that's going to come along. So that's one of the things that can help you with that check-in, and doing the foundational pieces to help your physical body to be strong enough to withstand any stresses that might come. And then stress management would be the next thing. So if your physical body is intact and you're doing all these good things, then stress, which is a normal part of life that we are all going to experience, when stress comes along, then stress management will be the next thing that I would recommend people start looking into, right? Being able to identify, like, what does my body feel like when it's stressed, right? Or stress, or your anxiety is heightened. And that would be the next thing I would say check into. Are you overworking? Are you burnt out? Stress could look like sleeping longer than normal, not sleeping. Stress could look like, again, overeating, not eating enough. Stress could look like, going to the gym way too much because it's helping, but maybe it's excessive. So now it's maybe signaling that, okay, this is not going well. again, stress could look like, again, a more physical illness. You're getting sick more often, you're breaking out, your skin's breaking out, you're dehydrated. Maybe, it could also be like, sometimes people get tremors, your eyes twitching, all these little things. And a lot of times it's the body that identifies it first, before your brain clicks that there's something wrong. And so, again, paying attention to your physical body will then help you to sort of determine what's going on with your mental wellness. Taking care of your physical body will help you to keep and manage your mental wellness too. Yeah, that's where I would start. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, it does. I'm really pleased about all this. I really like that idea of, going to mood altering substances. One of my mood altering substances was my cell phone. I reached a point where I didn't know, not to be okay. Like when I'm feeling something, I have to either listen to motivational speech or go and watch cat videos, and I became so addicted to cat videos, and the algorithm has a way of spamming you with things you like. So every time I open my phone, I see cats, and they're so funny. And I had to, reflect lately of that, and stop doing that, because once something become addictive, as you just mentioned, I think it's become an issue. So thank you for the please model. I never heard about it, so I'm real pleased that you join us today. Thank you so much. I'd like to get back to you. I don't have any other follow-up question.
Dorcas, any question?
Okay, it is really very important, and I'm really learning a lot from here. So I'm grateful for this, and I really appreciate your coming. So I just want to ask some questions. I remember you saying you started doing this work because of what you went through, especially uh, you talk about the mistake that you do in your teenage age and your young self. So I want to ask a question in that area. The question I want to ask is, okay, as a teenager and in your 20s, looking back to your life and the mistake you have done, how you are living your life, and now in the age that you are in. So what have you realized that of the mistake that you have done, and making sure that you are not staying in your past, make sure that you are staying in your present. So what did you tell yourself, and how did you overcome them? Yeah, then I will come to the next question.
Yes, I think this is a tough one, and one that, a lot of people ask, actually, right? So how do you overcome the mistakes or the challenges that you experienced in the past, especially during the teenage years and the 20s? And I think, what I would say, accepting that these were years when you were growing, I think is the first step. Like, we're all going to make mistakes. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me to accept was to be like, you're human, you're a human being, we're going to make mistakes. And then the next thought is, okay, why do mistakes exist anyway? Right. I think now, looking back, when I think about it, mistakes are there to teach us, for us to learn something, right? And I think a lot of times I needed to experience the thing. And I'm hearing my mother in my head now saying, if somebody jumps off a cliff, are you going to jump too? Do you want to break your leg multiple times? I'm sure all of our mothers have said something similar to us, right? But no matter how many times I heard that, I still would go into that experience, or I'd still do that thing, and then in Jamaica, we have this term, if you don't hear, you're going to feel, right? And so it's sort of the idea, if you're not listening, especially to the people talking to you, then you're going to feel the consequences of not listening. And definitely I felt the consequences. And what I will say is, when I look back and I think about that time, there's so many experiences that I had that I draw from now in my older years. And I sometimes wonder, if I didn't go through those experiences, or if I didn't feel, those consequences, would I have the understanding I have now? Like, would I have the empathy that I have now for people who are going through similar challenges and experiences? And so there's a sense of gratitude that I have in being able to look back and to forgive myself for that time, and also to pull out from it. What are those lessons? What are the things that I can, tell myself, okay, this is probably not the best thing to do again or to repeat. Like, one I will share, which I think won't harm me too much, is, I think I was 16 years old, and I was arguing with my mom about something. I can't remember what it was at the time. And we lived in a rural area, and we would go to school, and my parents would work in the city. And so we would meet at my mom's workplace. My dad would pick us up there, and then we would drive home. It would be like a 45-minute to an hour drive home. And so we're at this location where my mom is, and we're arguing about this thing. And, before you know it, I was like, I don't want to argue with you anymore. And I sort of storm off and just walk away. And in Jamaica, Jamaica is a wonderful and beautiful place, but it also can be a dangerous place depending on where you are. And so where we were located, there are communities close by that are dangerous. And so I sort of left not thinking, when you're upset, you're angry, you're not thinking about the things you're supposed to think about. And so I sort of stormed off and walked away down to the street. There was sort of this like flower shop that I remember, and I love flowers. So I was just my intent was to walk towards the flower shop just to, go look at the beautiful flowers, calm down, come back type of thing. And I ended up talking to somebody, close to the flower shop, and was there for hours. My parents were very, very worried about me. I, again, didn't know where I was, and night was coming, which is, again, not a good time to be out, being a 16-year-old girl at night. And, I went back to where they were, but they weren't there. And so I started to fret now and get worried too. And long story short, I didn't connect with my parents until the next day. And throughout that time, again, I was praying. I stayed with somebody for the night that I knew. And then the next day, my parents, I thought that I was going to get, we're going to get licks. I was 16, but, doing something like that was out of the question for our community. And I thought I was going to get licks. I was ready to face whatever was going to come. And my parents actually gave me grace. They spoke to me. They asked me, why did I do that? They said, we searched for you. We couldn't find you. They called everybody, and in the end, they said they were just going to pray that I was okay and that, they would see me again, basically. And, what they said was they felt like it was punishment enough that I was scared and that, I was on my own. I had to figure out what I was going to do by myself at 16 out there in the world without my parents. And I did. I really learned a lot that night. It's not good to walk away from your parents and storm off in a huff, be out there in the dark, not knowing what you're doing. By yourself, since then I valued my parents even more, and being in that experience, looking back, I valued them, and I valued their love and care for me, and I appreciated them for the way they responded too, because it could have been completely different response as well. So it helps me also to give others grace when they make mistakes too. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, sure. And it was really helpful. And okay, from your conclusion, what I can conclude from what you have said is accepting your story, because it is really who you are, and where you come from will not stop you, especially in your present. So, in when we were starting to talk, you say that knowing who you are and where you come from. So those things really comprise of what you have done in the past, and as you are in the present, does it mean you should still holding yourself that I have done this and I've done that, so this is where I am and I will remain like this? Or does it mean that you say bye to the past, then focus in the future and so on? So that's what I was trying to ask, and that's what you usually face. Most of us, really, especially in your teenage age and your 20s, you really go through a lot. And if you just give yourself that I've done this and this mean I cannot change it or I will remain in this, it cannot help. So changing the direction and continuing really help a lot. So thank for the question, for answering my question. I mean,
No, thank
can
you.
I
That's a
another
good
question?
question.
Thank you, Dorcas. I learned a lot from that. I think in Swahili we say asiyesikia la mkuu vunjika mguu. Those who do not listen to the elders will break their legs. So that's the direct translation. Since we're talking about the transition from childhood to adulthood, I think it's something I struggle a lot, having to be at home with caregivers and then suddenly I'm in a different country, being a student, and then also put in a role to provide for my own family. Um, like along the way, as people who've experienced displacement and other kinds of trauma, I was privileged in my work to get a training. It's called Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Training. I learned a lot about trauma, and my takeaway was that trauma is like a wound, and triggers are like something is pressing in the wound and it bleeds again. So as I'm transitioning to childhood to from childhood to adulthood, adapting to a new country, um, and dealing with pressures, whether it's in this country or from back home, and also because now I think what happened is being in that emotional state of um, displacement and moving from place to place, we're not settled enough to feel our feelings, to reflect on our past trauma and all that. It was hitting me all at once. Um, my question is, how can someone going through that build confidence and resilience? Because those are the moments where you start to question who you are, what you're capable of. Are you really the person you thought you were? Things like that.
Yes, definitely. I'm remembering my own sort of experiences with that, coming from Jamaica and coming to Canada. It was around the time when, I finished high school and was, gearing up to apply to go into university. And it was very, very challenging. Just that experience of applying for university. At first, I was told you would not get in, just with your Jamaican schooling, basically. And they were right. I wasn't even considered, and I had to repeat high school, at the end of high school, like the last grade. Again, I did so well because I did done it already. And so I think that's, again, another discriminatory thing, where a lot of times people come, like students come to, this country expecting to be treated fairly, right? For there to be a sense of equity. And you meet up on a lot of barriers, and red tape is what they call it. And so, again, that experience taught me so much in that, you're going to face a lot of challenges, but you can't give up to remember what your goal is. What is it that you want to achieve? And it can be hard when you're facing these challenges, right? Because at first I was like, I'm not going to go, if this is the the challenges I'm going to have to go through. But again, the community, the who piece of the taking care of yourself became very important, because then those people, my family, my friends, they encouraged me to keep going. And a lot of times it's during those challenging times. And so what I tell, international students is you try to find a community that you can attach yourself to, because that's the community when you're going through really challenging times is going to be your cheerleader. When your inner cheerleader isn't working anymore, right? And you want to give up, stay connected to your family some way, somehow. Find a way to regularly connect with those family members when you're far away, to help you to remember again who you are, why you're here, right? Foster that inner connection with yourself, the positive talk, self-talk, and being able to remind yourself again, I came here to this country to study this at this school, this is my goal. And sort of that can help with grounding you in your purpose and the reason for being here. Now, again, there are times when the mental illness piece will show up. And this is, again, something that could happen to anybody, but mental illness is generally predisposed in that it could be hereditary, in the sense that the way that we respond to things is based on, again, multiple generations of the way that our parents and family members respond to things, right? And so a lot of times as a person, we're predisposed to specific illnesses or to specific mental illnesses that you get diagnosed with, right? And so diagnosis is something that indicates that you have all of these criteria that would say you have this mental illness. And so we can all experience we can all experience depressive symptoms, right? But not everybody has depression, right? So the difference between the two. So depressive symptoms would be mental health and wellness. Being diagnosed with major depressive disorder, right, which is the formal diagnosis, is mental illness. So wanted to, again, clarify that. And so mental illness, treating it is different. You need a professional to help you navigate through a mental illness. Even for mental wellness, you can connect with a professional too, a professional counselor, because again, everybody needs help with that. But specifically for mental illness, you need to connect with a professional. So you can go to a counselor to, just talk about, talk about things if it's trauma related, anxiety related, depression, everyday life, being able to get skills and coping strategies. If you need to formalize a diagnosis, a psychologist would be the next person you'd want to connect with. So the psychologist is the one who would provide you with the diagnosis and would be able to clearly indicate these are the criteria that you meet. These are the areas you want to focus on. They may even suggest different modalities that would be helpful for you based on the mental illness you have. Okay. And then if you want to introduce medication, which would be another thing that could help, a psychiatrist would be the person that would, give that or prescribe that. Medical doctors can prescribe some medications too, but it's mainly the psychiatrist that would prescribe the medication and may be able to give you some information again about the diagnosis itself. And so that's sort of like the care that would be important. There are some, I guess, mental illnesses that need more, we call it stepped care, multiple providers helping at the same time. And so, for some people who have some addictive disorders like eating disorders or, alcohol and narcotic addiction, and they can't do it on their own or not able to taper off or, stop on their own, it's become so excessive to the point where they're a harm to themselves, then they might need to be placed in hospital for a period of time where they get help to reduce their usage and to get back into a better mental space. Sometimes medication is introduced, sometimes it's not, depending on the program that they they're in. Then there are also like, let's see, other things that people can do that can be helpful. And so, yes, just wanted to make sure I shared the mental illness piece and the difference between it for the regular mental wellness. It's specifically to your question about being a student. I've come across so many students that both are struggling with both mental wellness and also mental illness. And the biggest thing is isolation, feeling away from family, feeling like they don't have friends or support, going through this crazy teenage or early 20s, years, where they're having difficulty with relationships or the stress of those exams. And so I would say, again, connect with community, find a clinical counselor at your school if you can, and also check in with the PLEASED acronym, because that could be really helpful for you just to get the physical health pieces down, and then be able to identify, okay, what are the mental wellness pieces that I need? It could be going for a walk in the forest. It could be, getting a massage. It could be, again, wash day for us can be healing, washing your hair, taking care, of yourself. And so I'll leave it there. Hopefully that was answering your question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I definitely love going for long walks, like just in the city. I don't think I can go in the forest alone. But yeah, it does help. Like even just explaining to us what different help is out there for mental wellness, mental health, and mental illness. Because again, coming from a place where we don't know about these things, and then you have to figure it out on your own and be like, okay, what do I need? So I really appreciate you explaining those terms. And I think the furthest I've gone is student counseling. And again, it wasn't very culturally informed, and it wasn't like the best thing for me, but eventually I figured it out. 9 years later, I finished my studies. I am working, and I think the next step is to actually sit down with a professional and get to the root of issues. So hopefully, I can book my session after this.
Book your session.
Yes, I am ready. I think I am. So I'm just gonna do this again. For anyone joining right now, we are talking about mental health for newcomers. It could be in any country where you've been displaced and left your home and move around a little bit. Tricia is a mental health and wellness expert in helping people through those transitions. She has a lot of experience in that, and we're privileged to have this conversation today. As we come from a community where this is not talked about a lot, it's a recurring conversation for us at the U-Turn podcast. And I hope you take a moment to share. It could help someone. So please share it. And if you have a question, you're curious about anything, leave your questions in the chat. I'll give Rhoda an opportunity to read some of those in a bit. For now, I think we can add one more question. So the feeling of being lost and disconnected. I think who we are is not one thing, and it continues. It changes. Say you move from your own country, say for me, South Sudan to Kenya. It changes. Who I was in Kenya and who I am in Canada is different. And connecting back with family, yes, it does work, but sometimes it doesn't, because I feel like maybe I've changed too much, and that disconnect doesn't really come back. How do we build a sense of belonging in the new community, Tricia?
Mm-hmm. Building a sense of belonging. Again, this is a very popular question and very popular issue that I get from students too, and just people in general. Belonging is tough. It's a tough thing to do, especially if you're in a community, a space where there's not a lot of people that look like you or have your similar experiences, lived experience. And so the first thing I would say is try to look beyond the skin, right? It would be great to be able to connect with just Black people, or Black women, right? That would be good. But then maybe there are people out there who could give you a sense of care based on interest, based on support, right? That would be helpful. And so maybe open yourself up to the possibility that there are others, beyond just your Black community that could provide you with care. And open yourself up to them. Again, when you open yourself up, you can open yourself up to hurt too. And so be mindful of that. So have boundaries, make sure you're advocating for yourself when you're doing that. But I think that could be a piece of it too. There are others outside of our community that would be loving and open to, supporting, and they're also looking for friends as well, or they're looking for chosen family, right? And so that's one of the things I generally recommend, because it's limited. A Black person, we're literally 5.3% of the entire Canadian population. And so we're a small community in the larger scale of things. And in BC, we're only 1.3% of the population. So that just sort of gives you the context that it's easier to be isolated if you're only looking for Black friends, right? Now, there are times when you do need just the Black community. And so I would say just really look for those organizations. I can only speak to Vancouver right now, or, the Lower Mainland in BC, but, the Black Bloc Party, every year it happens in August. So if you were able to put that in your mind, look it up, at least, August, I'm going to see my people at the Black Bloc Party, right? Also connect with other organizations. Like, there is sort of I think the BIPOC Women's Society is also another one. They're having events all the time. Check them out. Be like, okay, is there an event happening? I should go check out that event. I would say other organizations are Black Women, Vancouver, Black Women Connect, I think. Cannot remember the name. Black Women Connect Vancouver. There we go. And I've gone to their events too. It's been great. Again, a way to connect with other people that look like you, and that will give you what you need, just to be in space and time with somebody who have similar, lived experience, and have fun activities with them. And then I would say, apart from that, over time, evaluate the friendships or the people in your life. And I think you started off by saying that, family members may not always be the most supportive people, right? And sometimes we've had to cut off or cut ties with family members because of the negative impact on our lives. And so I would say, this idea of chosen family becomes a bigger piece. And so when you're evaluating the relationships in your life, there's this thing called the friendship, the circle of friendship theory. And, when people talk about your inner circle, versus your outer circle of people, this is what they're referencing. And so you can do that same thing for literally anybody in your life. You can identify who are my inner circle people. And then the inner circle people are those people you would go to in a crisis. They're going to help you. You trust them. They're supportive. There's a reciprocal relationship happening, right? And you wouldn't bat an eyelash. You would go to those people. I generally recommend that inner circle not be more than 5 people. The reason is because you're giving a lot of energy, again, to those relationships. You're showing up for them. They're showing up for you. And a lot of times there's not a lot of people who are going to do that on a long-term basis. So people generally go between 2 to 5 people for their inner circle. And then as you go out in the outer circle, the second ring, third ring, fourth ring, then it reduces based on support, based on trust, right? And a lot of times the family is in the second or third ring, right? And so by being able to go through that evaluation of the people in your life, who's in my inner circle, who's in the second circle, third circle, outer circle, then that helps you to be able to manage your expectation of the people in your life. And so I'll leave everybody with that sense of evaluation. A lot of times there's the expectation, oh, because it's my blood relative, I have to tell them everything. I have to listen to them. But if they're harming you, and if, you know, their advice is not the most helpful, if they're breaking you down mentally, then they may not be the right person to go to every time, or to share everything with. And so identifying the inner circle is going to be important. Also remembering from that theory is that it's a dynamic process. You know, the same inner circle people who you had when you were teenagers will not be the same people necessarily when you've grown up now into your big adult self, right? Because sometimes you get betrayed by some people. So the longevity of the relationship does not dictate how close people should be to you. And so people change over time. And so again, the constant evaluation is helpful for you to be able to, again, determine, I would say do it every year, who are my inner circle people, so that you'll be able to, you know, again, leave the people who are no longer in the supportive, trustworthy alone, and only continue with the people who are going to, again, be a positive force in your life, help you when you have mistakes, give you good criticism.
Wow, I could go on and on, but I will respect your time, and if you could be so generous for a few more minutes, Rhoda, to read some comments if there's a question to bring up, and then we'll go around saying our U-turn message. U-turn message is something inspirational, something you want to tell people what they can take away from the conversation, or an advice you want to leave with anyone listening today. So we'll go Rhoda, and then Tricia, say a U-turn message, unless Dorcas has something else to say.
Can I ask a question? You tell me, sir.
Yeah, so we'll come back to U-turn message. Rhoda will read the comments. Tricia, U-turn message. Dorcas, Rhoda, and then me. Last.
Excellent,
Okay.
excellent. No, there are really great comments in the section. No question, everyone is applauding. I'll just put them up for the interest of time, and I just say thank you, Tricia. What you just said really clicked with me. I was handling a situation, and Dorcas, I'll give you 1 second so that you ask your question before we give Tricia the opportunity to say a U-turn message. So I was handling a situation at the university. There was this one lady. She blocked her family members, and I am a community person. I have contact with most of my community members, and they reach out to me and say, "Rhoda, we need to make this go." I was working. I was, handling this issue with the school administration. Police was involved. The lady put no one. And here in Canada, if you are an adult and you put a blacklist that you don't want to see anyone, the university wouldn't even allow you. And I was wondering what's wrong with this girl. Personally, when I was struggling with my mental wellness because of culture shock, I just came from Kenya and I was in my early 20s. I just turned 21, and I'm at the university. I was struggling. I had to connect with my community here. I have to look for community in Vancouver. I had to look for my community members around Canada and attend the events, and it helped me, recover and be more active again. But here's this one person who just refused to meet community members, not just even a grandmother. And so I didn't understand why she was doing that. But as you talk about evaluating the circle of our friends and family members and going through those, the first ring, second and third, now I get it. And she was respectfully, uh, kept off by the administration because it's her right to keep people off that triggering to her. She needed safe space to focus on her studies. So thank you for sharing that. And I remember last week I shared a short video about that. How to evaluate our friendships every now and then and see who we need to kick out or just ignore and move on, and who we need to keep or who we need to reach out to bring to our circle. So you really, really seal that message, and I'm happy, we're honored that you are here reflecting with us, especially on this occasion, which is Mental Health Week in Canada. So thank you, Dorcas. I want to give you this chance to ask your last question. Sorry, Alakir, we are taking time more than was expected, but we really love Tricia and all the content that she has. It's really valuable. Thank you so much. It's something that people pay like fortune to have you, but here you are volunteering it with us and with our community members. Thank you so much. Dorcas, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Uncle, for the time. I just want to ask a question. This question may resonate with what we are discussing today, or it may not be the experience that people experience in Canada. So, when you move to a new place, you realize that there are changes in culture, changes in environment, and so on. So, I want to just ask a question. Today, today, especially with the world of technology, social media, whereby a lot are happening on social media, have been said before. And if you don't know yourself, when you pick everything from social media and you apply, it will really give you a hard time. So, with the change in culture, especially the culture that we have been holding, or the culture that we are born in as black, and due to the changes in the life today, especially the way the world is going, and trying to hold and balance between the culture and the life to make sure that you adapt and you are on the track to push yourself forward. So how do you really balance the social media stuff, the cultures, the change in the life, especially how the world is moving today, and you want to make sure you balance and push yourself out, especially moving forward. So how can you really try to balance that? Can you help me say on that?
Yes, definitely. I think it's a good question in that, social media, it's almost like it's helpful, but it's also not helpful at the same time. You're bombarded with all of these messages and pictures and videos constantly. And so I think one of the things that you can do is when people talk about, media detoxing or social media detox, if you find that you again are addicted to your phone or addicted to the social media, like you feel like you have to go and scroll, you feel like you need that sense of validation from other people, from your posts, if you feel like you keep getting these negative messages and you're getting heightened or agitated by the messages, I would recommend a detox, or giving yourself opportunity to step away from it for a period of time, right? So that you can get back to the who you are, where you're from, who's important to you, right? And so sometimes being able to step away from the thing like that, again, the technology piece, can be helpful. And so that's one of the things I would recommend. But again, it can be helpful too. And so again, the balance is good, because I'm on social media as a business owner. You sort of have to be if you want to share and get people in the marketing piece. And so one of the things I do is similar to the friends, evaluate all the people I follow and I unfollow a lot. So give yourself opportunity to, if you find that something comes up on your feed that you're just like, no, I am not down with that, I don't want to, view that anymore, you can completely go and unfollow that, person. And so you're, in a sense, you're treating the algorithm, training the algorithm to show you what you want to see, basically. And so we'll only show you what you like, right? Or what you engage with. And so, give yourself that chance to, again, go through your feed when things pop up, because again, it's going to show you different things from time to time, even though you trained it. You can always click away. And sometimes it will, like on Instagram, it will come up with, was this helpful for you? Was it unhelpful? You can easily say that was unhelpful, right? Again, you're training it to only show you what's important. And so at this point, for me, I'm seeing a lot of like gardening videos and pictures. I'm seeing a lot of Bible verses and inspirational word. I'm seeing a lot of, my close friends' pictures and things like that. And less like the political news, less of, some of these other things that could be negatively impacting me. And so that's one way I think, like, if you need to be on it, or, if, again, it can be really cool too, just to be on there, share your stuff. You can train it to only show you what you want to engage with. So that's what I'd say.
That's good. On the point of the culture, trying to manage your history or the culture that you were born in, and the culture that the world is now portraying to everyone, to make sure you balance. So.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
There's one question in the comments I hope we can answer, and then we can move to the U-turn message. So Ruben says, thank you, Tricia Kay, for taking your time to discuss this vital topic. Question: given you know now what you know now, if one of your relatives show up in your current place of residence, what would you tell them to fit in the culture, which is completely different from what they left in Jamaica?
This is a good question. I would say, Canada can be different and similar, to Jamaica. I would say, like, the multicultural aspect is similar to, like, Jamaica. Like, in Jamaica, you'll find a lot of different people from different cultures. So that wasn't the big difference coming to Canada. So that's a similarity in a sense. But I would say that the difference, and something that people could do, is if you find that, I would say, again, community. Identify the people who are going to be a good community for you. I remember when our family migrated to Canada, we stayed with another family that we knew. And it was great that we were able to do that, because we didn't feel as isolated at the first few weeks that we were here. We also decided to go to a church. So we are Adventists. And so we went to a church close by as well, where there were a lot of Caribbean people at that church. And it was also another transitional, way that we were able to, again, adjust to the culture. Those people told us a whole bunch of things that we needed to do. And so I can't remember exactly what those things are, but one thing I will say was the cold, because we migrated to Ontario. So I know one of you is in Ottawa right now, so you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. And so the snow, we came, on a day when it was a snowstorm. And so I thought I was going to die, because it was, like, very windy. There was this whiteness just all around, and people were driving really slowly. And we couldn't see anything. Like, literally, it was just white and car lights in front of us. And so it was tough that day when we came. But the transition, that was helpful. We were able to find a lot of places where we could buy clothes, where we could get all the things we needed. I remember, I think it was Goodwill at the time. Goodwill, Sears has closed down in Canada now, but we went to Sears and got a whole bunch of things at Sears. We went to Goodwill and got a whole bunch of things. The thrift stores were like our shopping mall, basically, because, again, when you immigrate, you don't have a lot when you come. So I went through the thrift stores. Our family went to the thrift stores. I would say get any job that you can, because just having money is important. Don't think about, that job is beneath me, because my family, we worked in factories. That was our first job when we came. My parents are well-educated people from the Caribbean, but we went and we worked in the factory, right? The first job we had was at Campbell's Soup. I will never forget it. We were wrapping skids and skids of the cans of Campbell's Soup. We had to humble ourselves. And I think just giving yourself a chance, be humble and just get any job that you can. Even if it means wrapping some skids, and so that's what I would say, but don't stay there. That's one of the things I would say. It's a beginning, but it doesn't have to be your ending. So you start there and then you create your plan. Like, why am I here? What do I want to accomplish? And then you work from there and figure out what your next steps are. And that's what my family did. We, again, connected to community. We decided to get any job we could to earn a living. And then that money was then dispersed to help us achieve our goals. So that's what I would indicate to new people who are coming to Canada.
Okay, I think we are muted.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I think this is very important, that we know where to find you, Tricia. So please take this moment to answer Atiak's question, which is about other organizations out there. And she lives in Ontario, Ottawa, that can help women cope with postpartum depression. And most of our Black communities don't believe in postpartum depression. Any organization in Canada, if your organization help with that, how can they contact you? Yeah, please.
Yes, definitely. Yes, we do help. I have specifically two associates that work specifically with women that have navigated, postpartum depression. I can also help people to navigate that too. And so I can share my website. It's www.metacounseling.com. And specifically, you can go to the service tab to see all the different counselors that are there. That can help you with that. The two people I'm thinking of is Abinash and Sherry. They both have experience working with people that have not navigated that. And so you can definitely connect with them. Other resources I can definitely share with the organizers of the U-Turn podcast, and then maybe you can pass it on to your listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And can you tell us your U-turn message?
Oh man, I'm so grateful and thankful for you all. These were great questions. Anytime I get the opportunity to share my story or to share about mental health and mental wellness, it's something that I hold dear to my heart. And so I'm always honored. And so thank you for having me come and share with you all. It's also reminding me just how important this message is. And to be able to make it relevant and applicable to specific audiences. So thank you for your questions, and you're helping me to remember this is still relevant. This message still needs to be out there.
Rhoda?
Thank you, and thank you everyone who participated here. I'm lucky I don't have anything much to add apart from just saying, happy Mental Health Week. What I take away from this conversation, Tricia and everyone, is that we need to know who we are, and when we're grounded in who we are, where we're from, where we're going, it's easy to identify challenges that comes in our lives. And for me, it's I just going away today and telling myself it's okay not to feel okay, right? It's okay to reach out if I need help. It's okay to say to a friend that no, bye bye, this relationship is breaking up. It's okay. It's okay to be who I am and to know, where I'm going. So thank you so much. And to mothers out there that are watching, this is also very important. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. And I think it's as we wrap up this mental health week, we will take this opportunity to go and take care of your physical. I'm going to apply please model moving forward. I just have to be pleased always. No more. Yeah. So thank you for your time. And Alakiri, if there's no further question, I would close the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tricia. I occasionally go on your YouTube channel and watch very specific topics, and that really helps me to understand more about mental health, and learn about the tools that I can use. And I really appreciate you coming here today. I hope everyone take the message and go offline with it and really use it to cope and to ask for help and to accept that mental health and wellness is for everyone. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Rhoda, stop there.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And the links for meta counseling is there, so just
Yes.
click it and get yourself help. Explore services that are offered there. Don't forget, take care of yourself and get people that are experts that can help you navigate, your challenges. Thank you. I'll end it there.